All right, so I'm going to do it, and then, well, the thing is that because of the many advanced users, maybe there are mistakes in there, maybe there are things they didn't think about, because I saw a few things. We saw that John was using FFmpeg for doing things that I know are possible inside Leak, so maybe it's going to still be interesting. So I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. So this is the environment I want to set up for this. So I'm going to have... Well, I say server, so that's not going to be easy. I'm setting the bar a little bit higher than beginners. I'm assuming that you have a Linux running system, and the system I will be running probably will be my laptop for that anyway. And I'm going to use typical scenario streaming to Icecast, and we have an Icecast server that we might be able to share. And of course, Liquidsoap client and maybe clients if we get to that point where we want to do live and simulate the fact that we have more than one host. All right, so I'm gonna be using I'm gonna be using my laptop here, and whatever I'm doing, you can do it on Ubuntu or running with whatever version you want to install from it. We're going to talk about it. So that's not really true. I copied paste something I did here, and that's not correct. But yeah, I'm gonna have Liquidsoap client, Icecat server, and we're gonna just try to build a radio then. Okay, so I'm not gonna cover the install unless someone actually wants to know about all these things. I just said, like, all I'm gonna do is just working out of the box. Usually there just might be a few files that are not gonna work properly, depending on the version you use. And if I don't have feedback, I'm just gonna go on. But at any point, if someone is following and trying to make the things happen as I'm trying to make them happen, well, just tell me if I need to slow down. That's just fine. All right. So how to install Liquidsoap. So we heard about many different scenarios. I'm just not gonna talk about the other. Yeah, I'm not gonna talk about the other installs. I'm just assuming that you're gonna be willing to run it on your workstation or on the computer at the radio station, which is usually how it happens. And yeah, I did mention Docker, and that's not good. But I would say that Docker is just a subset of that, because, well, Docker itself has to have a way to install all those and make them available. But I agree. Yeah, Dane. Well, if you want to talk about it, I like to know why you see it. Because you might not have the same idea I have on that subject. Sorry, I'm gonna add Docker in that slide. That's actually true, but yeah, I think that people who use Docker should know how it was installed for them. Yeah, and the new Debian packages are just great. So that's why I'm saying from packages is probably your safer bet. No, not your safe first, but a safe bet. From the distribution, the problem is that usually in distribution, be it Debian or Ubuntu or CentOS or Red Hat, you have an outdated version, but that outdated version might be enough for whatever you want to do. Well, I don't remember exactly. I think Ubuntu has 1.4.1. 1.4.1, and that's quite great. One of the latest is fine. Debian might be a little bit late, but you can install the packages from the GitHub Actions thing. Yeah, and you have the deb.liquid. So, well, you have the one from the GitHub Actions if you want actual. Yeah, well, I just let someone put in the links if you want, but those are the one I use usually when I want to try out the last versions. I don't try to run OPAM. I just go on GitHub Actions, and thanks, Romain, for setting that up. I just get the .deb from there, install them in the station, and that's usually the best you can do. Then why I use OPAM is when I trigger a bug, or I want to try the latest version or something like that, and then OPAM is actually the easiest way. And you guys, I know there's some work to use more of the tooling from OCaml, like Dune or something like that, but OPAM is actually I'm not sure I'm pronouncing it right because I've never heard it pronounced before. OPAM is really the best way to do it and not struggle that much, because it's well documented in the docs. Hey, that's something that's great in the docs. You just have to make sure you don't forget the dependency, and that's kind of annoying, and that's a hard part. When you compile it there, you need to in the back ports maybe. Yeah, probably. Yeah, so Rob is talking about the packages being built by someone for Libertime. Yep. And so OPAM is great if you want to get involved or get the latest things. If you want to do it from the sources, which is basically what OPAM does, if I understand it correctly. Romain and maybe Sam made it quite easy. It's possible to do that, but there's so much dependencies and stuff that it's really hard to get on. And building a production setup while making sure you change the build system that they use in OPAM is just a waste of time. I've been there. I'm an IT guy. I do DevOps. I do a lot of stuff, and don't never ever try to get the, even if you get Liquidsoap full .zip from the GitHub thing. Don't do that. All right. So yeah, on my setup, I just use OPAM because I kind of know my way around it, but usually that's not the way I do it in production. Yeah, yeah, that's a good thing. But then you need to wait for a release. So if you want to try things that are on master, wait, maybe master is actually now in the actions. I don't know, but yeah. So yeah, it's not that hard anymore. And people who wants to use it on Windows, I know that the GitHub Actions are quite working a lot nicer, but I don't do Windows, so yeah. Yeah, well, I said all that. Yeah, well, I can just paste whatever I would use. If you have OPAM and a very nicely recent version, what you would have to do with OPAM is just depext and install all the dependencies for the system, and then use OPAM install and the list of all the things you want. So will be like something like once you have OPAM install, like OPAM init, and then you would do OPAM depext and the component you want to add. I'm not sure. I can copy. I'm not sorry. Yeah, I got disconnected while trying to copy things. So yeah, and you would just install whatever you want. That's quite common dependency setup I have. Maybe you can correct that if you think I'm missing something. I add Pulse Audio, but sometimes it's Jack because well, I do use Liquidsoap, and sometimes you want to output things from your sound card, and that's actually a great way to use all that. All right. And then, well, what you need to do is start scripting and understand the scripting part of Liquidsoap. So basically, Liquidsoap is scripting. I call it that way. I hope I'm not insulting anyone. It's reading off on. It's based on OCaml. It's written in OCaml, and you just describe how you're going to build your output. So people already mentioned a bit about this. So what you can do is launch command line and just say something like, I might want to share my screen at that point. Would that work? Yeah, it should work. All right. There we go. To get it bigger, it doesn't get bigger. All right. So what you can do is actually things like that, and you can just say, all right, I want to do something with Liquidsoap, and you describe what you want. So inputs, outputs, and if you want to put something out, I know that this might be changed, might be changed in a later version. So maybe this presentation is not going to be future proof, but there we go. If I say I want something out, and then I say, well, what's going to be the inside? I can do things like that maybe. And then here we go. Would that work? There we go. Lovely. So that's a good thing about Liquidsoap. They made it so that it's trying to guess what you want to do. And I do out, and it probably discovered that I'm using Pulse Audio on my computer, and it was like, oh, you want to use Pulse Audio? Well, I'm going to choose that as an output, and then I say what I want inside, and I use a function sign that's just a sinus sign in English, and that's just a tone so that you can actually see if it's working. All right. So when you do things like that, you can get creative on the one-liners. I don't know if we can have at some point in the community a great challenge competition about those. But yeah, and then the other option is to write leak script. So I will do the same thing here. I will open a file called test.leak, and I can just do the same thing I just did. And then you run it like that. And hopefully it works. That's great. Okay. So for this setup, yeah, I can have the slide. Yep. Yeah, David, I think that could be fun. But you're gonna kill us because you've got so much. You're just so advanced. So what's next then? So we have what we call operators. That's what we have here. So when I say here, I use out, this is an operator, sign is another one, and the idea is to build a source that will be played out by Liquidsoap. So the first two operators you're gonna learn about are probably one called single. Single is a way to play one file over and over, or you can actually set how it's done. And that's gonna be used for usually, even though there might be proper things, when you build your station, you want to make sure that it doesn't fail. We heard about people using fallbacks for icecast and stuff like that. And so so what you want to do is say, all right, I want a default file so that things don't break. And I would use something like that. And I'm gonna just show you what kind of file I have laying around. That might not be the name of the file, but that's all right. And this basically means, all right, I'm creating a source called default that will just be the file default.mp3 played over and over. All right. I'm just gonna check how my things look in there. I'm not on a good window. Go. All right, so I do have a default mp3 file here, so that's good. And then if I want to play that out, I can use out default, and that's just going to try to play default whenever out is set up. All right, so that's going to be very interesting. I don't remember what kind of file that is, but we're going to guess. We're going to see that in a moment. All right. So we can do another challenge now. You have to guess what the music is. Good luck. Because there's no metadata here, I think. All right, that's good. So single, I play one file, that's good. And then I'm like, yeah, I want to do something a little bit more clever. I would like to do a playlist because I have a lot of files that I do store in my directory, and I have one here that has a lot of files. And what's good about Liquidsoap, again, is that if you want to do this, you just have to say, all right, my player out, it's going to be a playlist. And the playlist operator, that's a good one. You can just feed it a directory, or you can feed it M3U file, or whatever kind of file that Liquidsoap might be able to read. And here I'm just using a directory, so I'm not setting anything intelligent about what's in my files. I'm just telling where they are. We know because we heard and we listened to John earlier on, and he told us that's probably not a good idea. But let's do it anyway. I think that was nice. I'm just going to copy it over. All right. And then I'm going to say, well, I've got a playlist. I've got a single file, so I don't want this to fail. And maybe that's not going to work as I want, but that's all right. And I'm going to say, all right, whenever we run, I want to run the playout. And if it doesn't, or if it fails, You might say how a playlist can fail. Well, or maybe someone to give insights about how a simple playlist can fail in there. Just I'm just gonna take ideas there because I don't know. I don't know. I'm just giving it a list of files. How can that fail, huh? Well, I could use playlist.safe, but I'm just saying this playing dumb here. All right, I'm gonna say play out. Yeah, that's that yeah, something like that could probably break everything. Well, I've got everything in the folder, so I would be safe from that kind of command. But yeah. So fallback, what it does is it tries to play every source, and if it doesn't work out, it changes to the next one. Well, that's actually interesting, but I'm just gonna play this as if we're as good, and so that's gonna be my radio, in fact. And so I'm gonna say out radio. I'm just moving on because I guess you guys know a lot about all these things. And then I'm just gonna look at what it does. And it seems to be playing the same file, right? It seems to be playing the default .mp4 file that we had before, maybe, I don't know. Or maybe it's a 16 Whiskey Coke file. That's good. It's good. It's playing the playlist. So it's playing one file from the playlist. Good. So now I'm saying, all right, this was good. I can hear it in my ears. I could do something very dumb like streaming that back to Icecast or something like that. But of course, I can use Liquidsoap. And I'm going to use a very, very secure setup here. So if you guys are following the workshop and you want to play, that might not be real if you are watching a recording of that. But I'm going to display the password for the server out there. So if you're running the workshop, you don't have to set up your own Icecast server because I'm just gonna let you use mine if you want. All right, so I'm thinking let's do this. And I want to stream to Icecast and the server. That's a bug that I'm gonna talk about if you guys are interested. But and now Romain is like, well, if he's still there, I don't know. Or Sam are like, what is he gonna talk about again? We're gonna see. Yeah, this is running in port 80, and because I'm gonna give you the password, there's no point in securing anything more. So if you guys are trying this at home, the password is probably something around, I just forgot what I said, but it's probably Liquidshop work or something. I'm just gonna check. All right. Okay. I don't have it, but it's fine. I'm just gonna use that one. So it's probably something like Liquidshop Workshop, but that should work. And so if you do that, you're just telling it, connect to Icecast, this server, this port, this password, and play my radio. And what you have to say to Icecast is what the format you want to encode the file in. Because when I was using out, I was using Pulse Audio, and that's just a sound card, so I didn't need to that would have been too easy. So yeah, hack me. I was like, yeah, well, I'm gonna get hacked at some point. But that's actually a nice Icecast version from Master, so it's using the latest code from them, so it's kind of good. I think I'm all right. And then yeah, I do have to encode to some format, so let's use something like Opus. Why not? Tell it to use another bitrate. That's good. And that's going to be all settings I'm going to be putting there. I think that's not bad. That's live coding, so if you think like this is gonna work, say give me a thumbs up. If it's not gonna work, then insult me and give me the correct thing. I hope that's the password. If it's not, I'm gonna check it. So now we're not gonna hear it here. That's not good. Oh yeah, great. That's actually a bug I know about, but you have to tell it how it's gonna call. So I'm gonna call it Liquidshop Gilles, so that if you're using it, please use another name. There's a bug here. If you set a name and not a mount name, it's telling me that if I don't tell it a name, I can. If I give it a name, it's going to use it. There's a bug there. It's not going to work properly. So it seems to be working, but because the connection took a little bit longer, it's actually playing the default file by default first. So, yep. There you go. So you can probably hear it on Icecast. I'm just going to try it. And it seems to be working. So, yeah. So if you really want to hear what's going on there, yes, thanks you, David. That's what I was expecting. It's good. This is getting interactive. That's great. So because I use a fallback is actually track sensitive, which means that it takes the first, well, if the first source is not available, it's switching to the next one. And because the connection to Icecast is taking a little bit longer than just playing on Pulse Audio, it's playing the default file. And yeah. So I can use a parameter here that I can add, telling it, all right, well, I would like to play this file, but it doesn't matter if we're in the middle of a track. Okay, and you would do that, yeah, obviously, if you had long-lived streams and not only songs, or if you don't want to play default file, because actually Icecast is going to be ready in like 5 seconds, and it can just go on. You and not as much as your servers, I'm sure, but I think we are. No, don't do things like that. Well, actually, you can try it. It's like probably kind of protected, but it's like a base thing. Yeah, don't do that. It wouldn't be nice. No, you cannot. But if you're interested in testing things on Icecast and you want it on this server, this one is on 100 megs, so it won't help. But but if you're actually interested in testing things like that, we might. It's a little bit out of scope for Liquidsoap, but at least that works fine. So I can switch to the stream, listen to it, and it's not the default file, so that's good. I think it's not, at least. Okay, so now we want to go do things a little bit nicer. So my setup is like, oh, I want simple scheduling there, or I want my playlist to be playing. This is playing like all of the lists at the same time. So I'm leveling up now. I'm just going to switch to the presentation. Okay, I'm going to read that in a moment, Eric. Oh yeah, so basically what they did with OCaml is pretty much the same you have like in Python or in Liquidsoap. If they are unnamed, they have to be in the good order like it's done in the documentation. And you can read in the documentation. I'm going to get back at that if you're interested. I can do that. So either they're not named, and then you have to respect the order that are set in the code, so in the documentation, or you don't want to respect that order, or you have to give them names, and then you have to name all the parameters. That's pretty much the thing. And you can, if you read the documentation, and I'm going to show that a little bit later, if you read the docs, it's telling you if it's a parameter you can name or not. Okay, so I got all my files and I can play them, and my Liquidsoap setup is going to be simple, but it's playing. I've played the Icecast stream, so it's working. Yeah, that's good. So I'm going to add things. I said that radio stations usually have expectations, so of course it's a little bit dumb for expectations, but that's pretty much what they're going to ask for at the beginning. And so what I'm going to have here is 3 styles. So I've got in my selections 3 directories. One's called classical, indie, and jazz. And I want to build a playlist for each of them so that they can be played. And I'm just going to build a play for them. And then I say, well, what I want is from the one from, oh, that's... yeah, jazz from 8 to 11, classical from 11 to 5. I'm not sure I had that right, but it's okay. I'm just going to switch to the screen and make that happen. Okay, here we go. If I can do it. There we go. Okay. I'm going to kill it to do that, but if I didn't want to stop, what should I have done? I should have told Icecast to fall back to another file, and then there would be the people listening to my show, really interesting one, wouldn't have been cut off. Okay, here we go. So I want my 3 playlists, and those were classical, jazz, and indie. And so basically, they are just playlists. and they are in the same directory as that one. So maybe some people are like, well, we want automation, so maybe we don't want to define by hand all those directory, and you could probably script something really nicely that says, all right, you take every directory that's in there and you just add some kind of rules there, but well, let's keep it simple for now. I'm not really a big professional of live coding and stuff like that, so let's see how that works out. So I got my free playlist there, and it's good because of the way the scripting is working, and that's actually something that Yuan mentioned. He said like it's good because I can do radio code. I can put my radio into code, and because of the naming schemes of variables and stuff like that. Of course, to IT people, it's logical. It's easy to make things like that, but I can actually refer to my playlist by their name, and that's actually good for people who wants to be creative, like having your names there. And that's actually a good thing because you're really creating by using code. So it's quite nice. All right, so I'm just gonna open the slide here so I can know what I said, and then let's just do it. So the operator, to be able to switch and to decide at what time what is gonna play, is actually the switch command. So good. Let's do this now. Yeah, I'm just trying to have my slide at the same time as this, and it's not so simple. But let's do this. Okay. Here we go. So now my radio is not going to be there. My playout. So I'm just going to rename that to full playout because I'm going to keep the fact that I can have all the files in one playlist. And my playout is not going to be a switch and saying, all right, let's do something here and say from 8 to 11. I don't remember exactly what I said. I would have the slide in D, for example. Yeah, let's do that. If someone is offended by the fact that I choose this kind of music, well, it's actually music that is free for everyone to use, so we don't have problems with rights, things like that. That could be jazz. And then, so what we could say here is the syntax is really not that great, but it's quite powerful. So you have to choose sometimes, and I guess that's a trade-off that has been made here. That should work. I'm just gonna say that I might have to say that I want it to be true or something like that here. And actually, the syntax is even weirder than that. But if you've been playing around with Liquidsoap for a long time, you're used to it, but it's quite not so easy. So switch is actually here what we call an array. So we have a list of predicates, and well, it's actually couples of predicates and a source. So it's an array here, and that's here tuple, and it's saying, well, it's actually a tuple that has here a predicate. So this is a condition defining when we need to play what's on the right side. So this is saying from 8 to 11, play the indie source. And the indie source is defined on top of that. That's my playlist. Then from 11 to 5, do jazz. From 3 to 6, do classical. And then full playout. I'm actually not sure of the syntax here, but let's just try it. And that should be good. Someone want to bet that I did a mistake here? Let's do this. And the reason it should work, yeah, that's not it's not happy, and I guess that's the reason. All right, so maybe I did something stupid there. No, it's good. So you could say just true or something like that here, or you can say, well, I want it to be defined, so I say from 6 to 8. Here we go. seems to be working. Well, so of course we are in. It's on my local zone. It's 11 p.m. So it's gonna switch to the main one, but that's okay. All right, this is good. We got our things going, and so we can imagine our radio enthusiasts who tell us, "Oh, that's good. That's really great what you're doing." And now what we want to do is to make things a little bit harder. Um, as we don't want one playlist to be played, but we want a mix of files from different playlists. So that will be making sure that from 8 to 11, say, we have 2 tracks from indie and 1 track for jazzy. From 11 to 15, we have 1 classical, 2 indies, 2 jazzy, and stuff like that. So what is the operator I want to use here? Well, I can do that. I don't need something fancy to do this. I just need 2 new operators, and that will be rotate. That allows me to define how many files from each playlist I'm going to play, how many tracks. Or I can use random. That will do the same, but it will apply some weighting to a random process. So it might or might not be how many files you ask to play, so it creates some kind of randomness. All right, so that's again coding, writing using by coding. So I'm saying, all right, so I'm gonna say in the morning, so that's 8 to 11. Let's say I want to do something, so I just write it out. I say morning. It's gonna be a mix, so that's rotate, saying I want 1 of each, and I'm gonna tell, and that's you ask Eric about the name, the parameter. The way you can change how rotate works is by giving a weight parameter, and that is a name parameter. So here we go. I'm saying weights, sorry, and that's a list of weights for every source you're giving, telling it you need to pick 1 or 2 or 3, or how many you want from each of the sources. All right, let's go there. Let's go there. So I'm just gonna say I want 2 indie, 1 jazz. So that will be there, that, and then you give it an array, and you don't have to name that one because it's an unnamed one in the docs, and I'm going to show it in the docs afterwards, Eric. And so here I say indie and jazz. That's good. All right. Then we have noon. I'm spinning it a bit. I want some randomness in there, so I'm not sure it's going to play exactly how I asked for it. So that will be 1, 2, 2. That will be classical, indie, jazz. And so in the radio world, people will tell you you're crazy to do things like this, because here I'm just letting it do whatever it wants. And Sherry or I don't remember who used the clock wheels term, John from Live 365. They told us about clock wheels, and usually radio people working in radio, they're gonna cry. They're gonna be like on the floor crying when you show them things like this, because they're gonna tell you that's not how you make radio. But in the end, what you're achieving here, it's quite all right already. It's not professional grade selection or scheduling, but it's quite nice already. All right, then the next one will be afternoon. That will be, I don't know, rotate, weight. There we go. Okay, and then I just say, all right, well, I just have to switch because, of course, for the example, I didn't change the predicates timing, so that will be morning. And here, again, we have the coding. Well, of course, you want to play whatever's set for morning in the morning, and whatever's for noon around noon, and then whatever you have for the remaining. And I don't change the full player. That's nice. Okay, let's try this. So I'm going to share the code for those, but again, I'm pretty sure that works out nicely. And so I should have to wait. So I'm just going to hit play, and we're going to see how things end up because of the rotation. But no, well, since we're in the full random, it's not going to work out. But that's quite nice, and that's really a nice way to describe your radio by code. So that's nice. Okay, Then I'm going to skip the part about the jingles because I don't have jingles, but you might actually send me a few URL to jingles if you want, and we can try to add them. Because jingles usually, well, there are two kind of, well, there are more than two kinds of jingles, but either jingles are just pieces of music like the other ones, and you just use random and rotate to say that you want to play them. If you want to play them at specific time, you can use switch to make sure that at a given time you play them, and you can have another operator called add that is one that will play and mix on top of whatever you're already playing. So that's always used for the top of the hour jingles usually. So that's actually nice. I was talking about the documentation, so I'm just gonna say, hey, of course, I could open up a browser and you have documentation that's listing on the website, and it's actually not too bad if you know what to look for. But if you're on the command line and you just want to get help quickly on some kind of operator, say you want to know how rotate works, the one we just discovered, you just do Liquidsoap -h and then the name of the operator you want, and the online help is quite good. There you go. And Eric, you asked about the parameters, and here, what you can see is the one that are named. Well, those, well, there's only one that's unnamed. Obviously, it's here. It's the sources, the sources of the list of sources. Sorry, and so basically all the others you have to give their names here. I don't remember the name for the required parameter. I think it's, well, I just have to use another one. Something like that, maybe. You have different characters here in the docs that tells you if it's a required parameter or something like that. Maybe I can use something like that. So yeah, in the documentation you have a few hints, maybe. All these are like, yeah, I don't know. I think there's another way of displaying them, but I don't have an example though. If I meet one, I'm gonna tell you. Okay. So now we have a playlist that's playing and it's nice, and we're like, all right, so maybe we want to allow DJs to play, and that's with DJs or someone that doesn't want to use Liquidsoap. Yeah. Oh yeah, I do that all the time. Maybe it's not, I'm not serious enough for those things, and you're like, well, I want to have DJs being able to interrupt the flow of the playlist because it's more interesting, or I want to have radio hosts use some other tools, or maybe they use Liquidsoap, and then I want to open up my stream for them. So that will be the easiest way. Is actually, well, what I do usually is not that. So I'm going to use Harbor here, of course, because we're using Liquidsoap and we love it. But what I use usually for this is Icecast. So I have a remote Icecast stream set up, and I have it input as input.http, but that will require me to have someone else doing something on Icecast, which is possible, but I'm just going to switch it out and say, all right, let's use Arbor for that, and that's cool because if you do this, you can just do input.harbor and set up the mount point as live, for example. I'm pretty sure that's straight off for the documentation, and then you have to. I think that's pretty enough, but I don't know. Maybe set up the port if you want to, but I think it's yeah, because I have something running on my board. Really 8,000, so it's, yeah. And you can add a password if you want. I think it's quite secure by default. Well, kind of, because input.harbor, I think, does listen only on loopback interfaces, which means it's not going to listen to the outer world. So you need to set up an option if you want it to be listening on the internet. And that actually brings me to the subject. So maybe of the help. So I'm like, oh, I want to use input.harbor, and I know that Liquidsoap-h is the way. And if I go there, it's not telling me much. But if I go on the website, probably somewhere it's going to tell me that it might not be listening on the good thing. I'm like, so how do I set options for Liquidsoap? And that's something I'm struggling with all the time. But if you don't know about it, of course, if I go on a website, I'm going to have the information. You have the Liquidsoap -- conf desk for configuration description. That allows you to get options you can set to change the behavior of Liquidsoap. I can do something like that. Of course, if I don't write things right, no, that's good. And so, yeah, so you have all the options you can set for it. That is maybe the Harbor bind address. And if you wanted to listen on all interfaces, then you need to set the option. I usually set the options on top because they will impact most of the operators. So usually my options stand in the top of my files. I don't really know if it will be needed in that situation, but, and actually maybe Arbor listens on all interface by default. I don't know. I'm saying you want to say something, David. So all right, yeah, default sets it sets that. So maybe it's not that secure by default. So be careful with that. All right, and so if I switch to my stream, I'm gonna have the radio working good, and I'm gonna cheat, and I'm just gonna send something like this. Actually, I could do it as if it was Icecast there, and just say, all right. So that's a lot more secure password that HackMe that everybody uses because it's the Icecast default password. And then I'm just gonna do something stupid, and the encoding will be, I don't know, I don't care. I'll press again. Something like that, and I'm gonna switch to the live stream. Great. It's not working. Okay. Did something wrong. I'm just gonna get back to it. Well, actually, if the default is that, there we go. Live, hack me not. Maybe I didn't set the password properly. This, I did set it properly. Maybe I didn't restart it. Ah. It's not connected. So yeah, that's an interesting thing about the language. I added the input, maybe someone saw it, and I didn't connect it to anything, so it was just discarded because it's not connecting, so it's useless for for Liquidsoap. So yeah, that's something you can do. And if I want here to have my live, I just have to say this is live, and I want it to be played whenever it comes up. All right. Something's not working again. All right. It didn't connect. Why not? Maybe it's late. Oh, there you go. That's lovely. So, yeah. So, no, the hostel was local hostel. No, wait. I'm just gonna make sure that this doesn't go in the good one.
that
Maybe you
kinda
didn't hear
makes
that.
me smile.
Maybe you didn't have the music at the beginning because, well, whatever. So that's good. And then, well, of course, that's the very basic way of doing it. And people doing radio shows and people doing DJs mixes all over the world are going to tell you something about this. You might want to add things in there, but it's already good as it is. You might want to make sure that whenever a DJ disconnects or connects or host goes online to talk, you might want to transition there. So either to do crossfading if you want to do something basic, but you could also add what we call, I'm not sure it's called like that in English, but in French we call it a wave. So it's just a waves. It's a sound that starts in the stream, and the one that will be playing, it will be played at first by the DJ, so that you can have the impression that there's no cut in between the mixes. So you have something that does, and the other side you have, and then it goes as if there was no disconnection, and it looks kind of Texas-y, so it's good. And DJs love it because then they start their start their mixes without having a blank in there. All right. All right, we have all live input things. I'm not gonna talk. I'm not gonna I'm not gonna do a demo for the player titles and metadata because that's a lot of work you have to do on your collection rather than your thing. But there are some metadata here, and it's actually transmitted all the way down to your sources. So if you have clean sources in your library, you have nice metadata there with title, artist, something like that, then you're going to get them in Liquidsoap. And usually what people do in radio station, they want to add identifiers so that we know what kind of show it is. So if you have live DJ stream, they might not send you metadata, but you want to tell who's the DJ or what's the show if you're hosting a show, or you might just recall for users what radios they're listening to if their player is able to display that information. It's getting a little bit more now. Usually metadata is now handled differently. I wish that we had a little bit more of work to do with Liquidsoap and the metadata. What's good is that you have a function called map metadata that is actually enabling you to make sure that whenever metadata happen, you can write it, or you can decide to divert it to some kind of text files, a database, so that you can actually show to the world what's playing on your radio. So that's good. Now, the thing about scheduling is that it can get hard, and well, we say that there weren't a lot more tooling than what we had, what I showed you, and so usually what people do is that they use outside tools to do this. And I'm just going to talk about media libraries that won't do scheduling for you, but they can help building media library, and they were already mentioned. So I'm just repeating things that were mentioned, so you won't have the links in there. So I'm just going to switch again there, but I guess a lot of you know about Beats, and I know that Martin told us about it as well. There's another tool that I like that's called Funk Whale, if you don't know about it. That is a web interface to sort your audio, and it can play a radio, well, fake kind of radio itself. And then what you would use, and that's why I asked Sherry about what the one that she was using, but she maybe said about the one that about from Live 365. You have a lot of tooling outside that can just generate your playlist for you using clock wheels and stuff like that. But maybe at some point we might ask Romain, and maybe it's going to happen, to have more serious scheduling with predicates. So we can say that we don't want two tracks for a given playlist to play, or for two different playlists to play next to each other. Other things we want to do sometimes is making sure we don't repeat things. I don't remember how you said you did it on your Django thing, Dave, but you did it externally as well, because you probably figured, and that's not, yeah, you did it externally because you've probably figured it was not that nice. That's not very true, because in the playlist operator, you have check next, you have a check next parameter, sorry, and you can actually implement there something that will make sure you don't play things twice in a row, something like that. And I actually written something about that. I could actually do something about it. It's really badly written because it's written in Liquidsoap, and that's quite hard to do. But I written in the Liquidsoap logic for something that had to be really fast, so I didn't want to add an external process managing things, and so it's not so hard to store the titles you've played and do something like if I've played this file. So again, what is this file? I'm just going to say if it's the file name that you don't want to repeat, it's easier. And you just say, I'm just going to store that for a long time and just going to make sure that it does work. Yeah, how does that, yeah, the fallback with the delay, how does that help with the non-repeating things? Oh, it's for something else maybe. I switched to the jingles because I didn't prepare that part because I got kind of caught off guard with the organization of the Liquidshop, and I had a mention. Oh yeah, yeah, that might be seconds maybe. Oh yeah, but you have to make sure that it's not track sensitive, otherwise it's going to be awful. But yes, great. Okay, all right. So on with the other tools we might be asked about. So I'm trying to get it out. Go. And then, well, of course, when you have external scheduling, usually what you want is web interfaces. So I don't recall the name from the one from the Burning Man radio, but that one looked awesome, and I'm definitely gonna look it up. Then, of course, we have LibreTime and AirTime. Those are quite awesome. I think AirTime is kind of dead, but LibreTime is taking over and it's good. Yeah, that's good. The one, Crazy Arms Radio backend. I'm gonna definitely add that at some point in the slides. That I look forward to that. Azure Cast is something quite great, notably because then, well, they have like almost all of the Liquidsoap features packed into a web interface that is quite easy to install and to use, and that's great, guys. Again, all the people that I won today, like it's amazing work, and it's amazing to see things working like that. And of course, shower gel, le gel de douche. And actually, for the joke, yeah, I told about that tool like 2 days ago because I was doing a radio show, and I was like, well, they all have this tooling, named about Liquidsoap and soap and stuff like that, and savonette and Liquidsoap, all the puns around the soap. And I was like, and someone is actually writing a web interface so that we can use it. I was kind of showcasing your tool, and someone out of the blue told me, and they called it shower gel, of course. And I'm like, yeah, they did. So that's great. It's great inspiration. Good on the naming schemes, guys. All right. Well, I'm not going to cover those, even though we could talk about them, but they were showcased before, and I'm pretty sure you guys have tried those. I'm going to say something about them that's not going to be all nice because we've all been saying nice things. But again, because most of them are based on Liquidsoap capabilities, they are kind of missing what people who do radio broadcasting like in the old way, maybe not everyone, but most of them will just look at them like, yeah, I can't easily set my queue in SQL. I can't set my library and do correct media ingestion. So there is room for improvement to make it really more appealing, I think. But maybe we need to, what we say, like have IT people talk to radio people and make that work at some point. And I don't know which one is going to be the good one, but we might want to do that. All right, on to another issue that is always mentioned by people, and John did an awesome write-up or talk about it. It's about the sound processing, and for them, oops, that's messed up, but that's okay. And so what we want usually is normalization. John may really covered most of the topics there. Your tracks are usually not at the same level. You don't want to deal with this, so you use normalization. I'm going to talk about how to do that maybe with Lick. I think I have a slide about it. Sometimes you want to do blank detection, make sure that there is no blank. That was happening with the DJs that forgot to log off after they were done with the string, or it can be a track that has a really long ending because it has a secret tracks, whatever. It can be quite annoying. And then you have other tools that are made to have your sound better, and that will be limiters, compressors. So limiters could also be for legal reasons, because well, you don't want to break the ears of your listeners, but sometimes you have kind of rules or laws asking you to make sure you limit your sound. And if you're doing shows with people with live microphones, then you might want to compress at gates and stuff like that. So actually, I'm not going to talk about FFmpeg. I'm going to talk about Liquidsoap. Liquidsoap has all the tools for most of what we want to do there. It's just quite hard to do. But if you want to do normalization, they have a live algorithm that's trying to limit or to push to amplify sounds when it's happening. But normalize, I wouldn't use it on a kind of professional grade radio because, well, sometimes it gets things wrong, and if it gets louder and louder sound at some point, it's gonna just play them really loudly. So you need to have another control afterwards. You then have amplify, and that's good. The name might not be really good. There might be another one for that, and that what it does is read the replay gain attribute, which might be the amplify annotation. John told us about the annotation. It's a way you can build your playlist and add information into it so that Liquidsoap will read it. And the good thing about replay gain in Liquidsoap, I might not be willing to try it, but what it does is called a script that will actually request the information from the track, and if it's not there, it might try to use tools to figure it out. So that's actually quite good. Of course, you've got skip blank, eat blank that allows you to deal with the blanks. And if you want to do sound processing, you have native operators. One is called compress and the other is limit, that do act in every way as any other compressor. You just have to know how to do a compressor. But that's a good thing about people who work in a radio station. Usually they're going to tell you that the sound you build with Liquidsoap sounds ugly, but they're going to tell you how to set up the compressor. And because it was implemented in a way that is compliant with what we call a compressor or limiter, they're usually going to be able to tell you what parameters you want to put in there. So it's not so bad. And so then, is that enough? Like, we know it's not enough because John said it to us. I know a great tooling in FFmpeg that does so much than this, and he decided not to use Liquidsoap for this scenario. But for the others, imagine you haven't heard about whatever John had to say because it was amazing. But is that enough for you? Like, I would be running radio, like people would do that. Ah, right, metrics. I won't deal about metrics because radio people usually they do care about metrics, like from the front end. Then they want to know how many listeners are there, what kind of qualities are listening to, and stuff like that. Some radio producer might be interested in, is there blank? How long was the blank? Why is it not working, and stuff like that. Yeah, yeah. Well, probably. I won't be dealing about those because I actually didn't have. I read about what you guys did, and I loved what you did to work with Prometheus and stuff like that. And we really need to have something like that going on because I'm a nerd and I love to have this kind of information, and it can actually be of value even to sound producer and stuff like that. But I haven't dealt too much with it. But I was more thinking about more tooling to change the way your sounds, if I must say. And all the time they're gonna talk about probably StereoTool, and we mentioned it, and Romain mentioned it because he hates it, because, well, I don't like it that much because it's not like open source, it's not free, but it's really like a radio standard, so everybody uses it. So I'm gonna get back to that, but before I get there, if you're wondering about things you could do in StereoTool, but you don't want to because you want to use things that are either maybe easier somehow and maybe more globally available, assuming you're on Linux and you can use them, you really can use whatever LADSPA plugin you have. and those plugins are amazing because they were written, some of them were written like 20 years ago or 30 years ago, and they are all having they have all the sound processing you can dream of. But the complicated part about it is that you have to know how to make them work and know how you can have parameters for them. And what I do usually, because I'm lazy, well, you have, of course, documentation about that. But what I do usually is use something like Ardor. Maybe some people know about this awesome DAW. And it's a DAW that uses the same kind of infrastructure for plugins, and it has VST using LADSPA. And so that's the way I'm using. And I'm just giving you a list, but probably the first one is the only one you would need. And so say I install the SWH, which are Steve Harris plugins. Oh yeah, yeah. Sam, yeah. Well, I'm going to show a thing I did with it. Maybe it's going to help. Maybe it's not going to help. Maybe it's not going to be enough. Because I plan on actually, and I wrote that a long time ago. That was trying to write multi-band compression. I'm not going to write it as if I was doing it live. I'm just going to make it available. Where is it? There we go. And I'm pretty sure that Sam, your request is really valid. Like, people who know these things, they need to talk to people who do math, because it's really simple math. And I love StereoTool. I'm going to talk about it just in a minute, but it's hard to grasp for someone who does math, because it's only signal processing to us or to them, and we need the link between the math and how it sounds to the ear and what needs to be available. And one example is multi-band compression. And of course, limiters, compressors are things that can allow you to have like unnormalized tracks, or if you have live talks, they can make sure that if someone is speaking too quietly, it's going to bump their sound to something higher. But at the same time, if someone shouts in the microphone, there's going to be a compressor making sure your ears don't go bleeding and stuff like that. And those things are actually doable in there. So it's actually a quite long one. I'm going to put it in some kind of pads so that you can copy it if you actually need it. And I'm just going to show them in there. There we go. I'm going to share the screen here. Yes, they are really easy to implement. That's the thing. But at the same time, you need to know. But the good thing about sound people is that they actually know how to make this stuff work. Well, because I'm saying easy. Well, it's easy to make it work, but people from the radio and the broadcasting world, and you probably know what I mean. Like, a DJ might tell you, yeah, I want some flanger effect here. I want a phaser. I want to do something, and it's gonna tell you what kind of parameters it has or how it sounds, and you can make make it. It's not so hard in the end, but you have to translate. So I'm not sure if you can read it properly. I might want to zoom in there, or maybe I can't zoom. So that's one way to do the thing, and I think it's quite clever, and it's quite amazing that you can use things from Lick. And here it's a mix of LADSPA and Lick, but it doesn't have to be only Lick. I don't remember why I didn't use. I think there's a gate operator in there. Yeah, that's what. Yeah, and so here, I'm just going to walk you through what's happening there as I understand it, because I'm not really a sound guy. So I'm trying to make things happen. So this was aimed as live stuff to make sure that we don't broadcast actual blank. It's kind of strong, but this is making sure that if the sound we get is lower than 60 dB, it doesn't get in. So that means probably that I'm doing blank detection and I just want to get rid of this, and I didn't want to use Liquidsoap for that. But it's just to make sure that my sound processor is not gonna be triggered by a very, very low sound. I just discard audio that's too quiet. Okay, I don't know where this was commented, but this is probably from a live environment I have. So this is using the Normalized tool, and the Normalized tool is kind of dangerous. But this allows me to make sure that every time I get, well, it's deactivity. I don't know why I did that, but minus 13 dB might be a little bit less. So I deactivated probably because it's dangerous, and that might not do what you want, and might you might end up with louder sound that you expect. But I might have a limiter in there, I think. Okay, here I use a compressor, so that's the one from I think that's one from Steve Harris. So it's from the SWH plugin collection, and I just use LADSPA, and I have access to it, and I cheated and I opened Ardour and I tried to make it work properly. And so what's important for a compressor is the threshold. So this one is probably going to be always active. It's going to be rather fast, and it's going to release fast as well, quite fast as well. Well, not so fast. And I'm going to boost the signal. So what's going to happen there is whenever something at minus 30 dB is coming in, I'm going to compress it. I'm going to make up for it and make it 7 decibel louder so that it gets louder. But of course, things that are loud are going to get loud as well, but it's going to be limited by the Amherst peak. So if it goes over that limit, it's going to be compressed so that it stays in line. Yeah. Well, we need to improve that, Valina. I mean, we need to, because this is something I've been looking for, and I'm really not good enough at OCaml to make it better, and that's good. So that's something that's really great, because I'm pretty sure that this is implemented in native Liquidsoap. So here, what's happening is we are dividing the sound, the source, in multiple bands. So we are separating the different frequencies so we can apply different filters on them. And I'm not claiming that this separation of the frequencies is clever. I'm not claiming that what we're doing here is good, but it's possible. And when you talk to sound guys and you tell them, hey, I've got AGC in there, or I've got multi-band compression, and I can do it live, and it's not using that much CPU, because Liquidsoap is actually quite efficient with this, you're going to see their faces change a bit. Hopefully, because that's one of the prominent tool in StereoTool. It's the multi-band compressor, so that you don't compress and you don't boost all the frequencies. You only boost those that matter to your listeners. So it's actually quite good. So I really don't remember what we did there, but we said that everything under 190 hertz we'll have a makeup gain of 4, so we boost them quite a lot. And I don't remember what the peak is. It might be 1 dB. Yeah, they might actually like that, yes. And so, yeah, for every range, I do apply different coefficients of makeup gains and ratio. The ratio is how hard you're going to compress, and you can actually make it slower or faster to create some effects. And the good thing is I subdivide things. I actually add compressing here and limiting. So the limiter is actually quite important, but you can use limit. Here, I'm not sure why I use that one. I think the tap limiter from the tap plugin collection is actually quite good. But again, maybe you want to look out the FFmpeg limiter that John praised, because when sound people and you heard how his microphone sounded and how his voice sounded, and you can tell that he guys knows about sound processing. So maybe I will change and look at the FFmpeg limiter. That might be a little bit better than that one, but maybe it's not, because that's actually quite good. And that's the amazing part of it. I subdivided all my source as that many different ranges for frequencies, but you can do all kind of tricks. And I add them back. I mix them all with the same operator I would use just to add a jingle at the top of the hour or whatever. It's the same operator. It's just you've got so many sources that you split and you add them back. And this is very, very low on the CPU. And it's actually not too bad for normalization. So it's actually that's actually not so bad. All right, so we've got the tools in there. We just need to get some people who knows a little bit about all these parameters and all these settings, and get them on board, I think. I missed it. All right. Yeah, and then I'm gonna finish about the last one, because when you work with video people, usually they wouldn't know about that. well, if I manage to show you a feature that you didn't know about UN, but you say that you sound experts in house, and I would really be interested in having the sound guys from La Maison de la Radio, which is the magnificent picture they showed earlier. The UN showed in his presentation. I would be amazed that if you could get them in a room or whatever with Sam or with Romain, and tell them, well, if we had this in the SRT colors or whatever, whatever you could put that would be awesome. That will be amazing. I will help in any way I can to make that happen, because people who do the sound for Radio France, Radio France has a really special kind of tuning, because it's mostly talk shows, but there are a few musical channels as well, and those guys are good. They're really good. Like, you've never heard a microphone sound as well as what they do. And I know that someone working at the BBC helped with the SRT work. Someone working with the BBC team. I don't remember the name of the guy, but he worked on Liquidsoap for the SRT work, and I'm pretty sure that there are some genius sound engineers at the BBC as well that will be glad to share a little bit of the secrets, so that we could have tooling open source that make the radio sound really good for everyone. And that's actually something that will make the adoption of it crazy, like very crazy, because I'm not saying that people don't want to use StereoTool because it's expensive, but StereoTool is also quite opinionated about what it is and what it has to do, but it's really good as well. And the good thing about this is, if you have a sound guy that loves StereoTool, well, you can just use StereoTool and mix it directly inside your stream. And I'm actually going to do it. I think I do have that. And so it's actually quite easy. So I'm not going to use the licensed version, but that's okay for the tests. Where is it? StereoTool. There we go. And it's quite easy there again, but if you're used to piping stuff, here we go. I'm just going to share it again. If I manage to do it, and not the last one, so I won't go further, but I'd be happy to talk about whatever's missing in there, or if you actually think I was on point or not, or maybe you disagree with me, and I would be very happy to hear about that as well. Where am I? Here we are. I'm just going to kill the current one. And here we go. I'm just going to use the same one. Yeah, does the screen work? Yeah, it seems to be working. Okay. So I'm just going to say I got my radio playing there, and I'm just going to pipe it. And the pipe operator, Romain, talked to us about it, and they actually had a lot of work done to make that work properly. Is that if you get the metadata in, you have to make sure that you get the metadata back, well, if you don't, then you have to restart the process, and that's not really really practical for StereoTool, because it's kind of slow to start and stuff like that. So I'm just going to copy my preset here so that we can go to bed at some point. There we go. I'm just going to do it before that. So I'm setting a preset here. I could just use the default settings for StereoTool. I don't know about this preset specifically. And here I just say, all right, what you're going to do is I'm defining here what we call the partial operator, so that I don't have to redefine the same parameter over and over. So here I'm not giving, and Eric, I'm sorry, this might be even more confusing. What I'm doing here is nothing. Here I'm just defining a new operator called pipe. So I'm saying here's a new thing called st that's going to call pipe with all these parameters by default. And so whenever I'm going to call st, what I'm going to be calling, in fact, is pipe blah 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 with all the information. And that's a good way to make things a little bit nicer to read and to read. It's good. Sorry, of course not. And then I'm gonna compress. I could use a preset different for live, because assuming it might be voice, I can do a lot of things there. I can use all different tools to do processing here, and that should be quite nice. And actually, I should have listened to difference, because there will be a difference here in the playout. And so here we go. So I'm going to get back, just check how things are going here. I don't see the piping. Where is it? I may have missed something. It is running, so why don't I see anything about the piping? Maybe I should have asked. Oh, there we go. Oh, that was slow. Took 2 seconds to start the process, but that's all right. So here we are. It switched to pipe, so I could have named that one so that it would have been called StereoTool or whatever. But now the sound is processed through StereoTool. So if you have sound engineers that say only StereoTool is a good thing, or maybe they say that it's actually good and that's real, well, you just make the presets on StereoTool on the graphical interface they are providing you, or the web interface they have, because they provide that nowadays, and it runs on Linux. And if you want to use it on the sound card, it works as well on Linux. So I'm not really promoting it in the way that, well, it's not open source. It's probably worth what it's priced at. But if you actually need something that works out of the box, that's probably what you want and what radio will expect from you as a sound processing. All right, so I realized that it was probably a lot lower level than what we had during the day. I hope that the recording will help, and I might want to share the code of all the examples I've given there. We might add them in the show. But my goal with this was to make sure that beginners could think, all right, we can do this. We have this. A radio station is not that hard. We can make it with Liquidsoap. We might have some pitfalls, but they are quite clear. Like the scheduling might have to be done outside. We might have a few problems doing the sound processing in it, but otherwise it's doable and it's going to work out. And then if a radio guy comes in and is like, well, I don't want to use Liquidsoap because it's a tool for nerds or whatever, I don't know. Well, now, because of the presentations of today, we can say, hey, the guys at Radio France use it. The guy from Burning Man uses that. So it's awesome. As Eurocast guys, they are behind this and we are working all together to make that happen. So yeah, there are options here and they're worth investigating, and you don't have to use a big proprietary solution to have your automation working. And I hope that it's going to get better and better. And thank you, Sam, for organizing this shop. And I guess you're telling me that my time is up, but I probably went way over what you were expecting. Thank you guys for indulging me.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It was great to end with this workshop, like more open-ended workshop.